To hear Johnson say that he doesn't believe that every Republican senator read the language of this bill. He called it a joke, and he deflected questions about John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, putting this forward. Thune's plan, of course, was to get most of DHS funded and then go back and try to pass funding specifically for those immigration agencies individually. It's also notable that he's talking about Democrats wanting open borders. That's not what they were demanding out of the shutdown. They wanted adjustments to immigration enforcement policy, changes to body cameras, masks being worn, judicial warrants being required to enter people's property. So a lot there from Speaker Johnson that doesn't pass muster, right? Let's go live to Lauren Fox, who's on Capitol Hill for us. Lauren, Speaker Johnson clearly trying to spin the fact that he does not have enough votes to pass the plan that Republican senators put forward.
Well, Boris, the reality is he probably would have enough votes if he were to get some Democrats along with him. And we heard from Leader Jeffries earlier today that he said Democrats were willing to do whatever is necessary in order to end TSA workers not getting paid as soon as today. So the votes likely would have been there if he would have brought this to the floor. But obviously he is facing a lot of pressure from conservatives in his conference who were not happy with what the Senate sent over in the middle of the night. I mean, it was really astounding to watch the Speaker of the House highlight parts of this legislation he did not like and then accuse Republicans of having not possibly read the entirety of this bill if they were truly supportive of it. It's just a good reminder, like you noted, this bill was passed by voice vote in the middle of the night by the Senate. That means that at some point there was a unanimous agreement that this was the path forward. And obviously this puts him and Majority Leader John Thune on a collision course. John Thune is the Senate Majority Leader, and while he tried not to call out John Thune by name and he tried to tap dance around the fact that Thune was responsible for putting this on the floor, Thune's the Majority Leader. Johnson can argue that this was Chuck Schumer's master plan all along, but he doesn't have control of the Senate floor. John Thune does. Clearly, there is daylight between those two Republican leaders. And I would also point out that Johnson said he spoke to Donald Trump, the president, just before he came out. That might give you an indication of where the president is right now. If the Speaker of the House felt comfortable coming out here and making such a juxtaposition to what Senate Republican leaders did just a few hours ago. I mean, clearly this is not a shutdown that is going to end anytime soon unless there is some really radical shift in Speaker Johnson's direction. Given how forceful he just was, that does not look to be the case right now.
Yeah, certainly, Lauren Fox, thank you very much for that.